So this is my little buddy. He got hit by a car this weekend, or this past week, and messed up his pelvic bones. I'm having to stay out here in the cold to make sure he's okay, but at least he's moving around. So I promised y'all I would do this video. The thing came up about biostems and this stuff, and can you use it this time of year? And I had to think about how I wanted to present this, because this is a very in-depth topic to properly explain it. It takes a little bit more than just, oh, this is what it is, this is how it does. You have to kind of understand down at the atomic level what is actually happening in your soil and how plants do what they do. Let's start with this example. So what I have in my hand here are two magnets, okay? And if you notice that as long as it's north to south, like we knew in magnets, they'll stick together. But then if I try to force the two sides, you notice that it actually tried to push it, okay? Well, the same thing happens at the atomic level and with electricity and anything else. And really, if you think about electricity, it is a subset of atoms and how it works, but that's another topic. Basically, your soil has what's called the cation exchange capacity, or the ability of the soil to handle positive cations of given nutrients, to hold it and to give it to the plant. Alright. CEC is actually more derived from the type of soil and the makeup of the soil than anything. Take this sand, for example. Now I've made exactly 1 square inch of soil to kind of give you an example. Look at how few particles there is of the sand. There's more of the silt loam and there's more of the clay. Now, typically speaking, sand on average will have a 1 to maybe 4 CEC. Loam will have a 5 to 8 CEC. And clay will have a 10 plus CEC. Alright. Now, if we come down to my drawing here, this explains it. Here's a root coming in to intercept the nutrients on the plant. Water particles, nitrogen. Notice that the nitrogen is a negative charge. This is why it leaches, because it cannot bond to the soil, so it leaches down. We have phosphorus, which is a positive, and potassium, which is a positive, and because the soil particle is negative, it attracts the nutrient to the soil. So I know what you're thinking here. You go, okay, Steve, this ain't got nothing to do with this whole biostem and everything that we want to know. Actually, yes, it does. All right, here's why. Whenever you use biostems, or you use anything like humic acid, anything with organics, a few things are actually happening in your soil. The biggest thing that it's doing is it is actually adding negative charges to the soil, either by particles or by binding to the soil and giving more area for these positive charges to adhere to and allow the nutrients to be absorbed. The other thing that it does, especially when you start getting into something like clay, clay has a situation where it's bonded by iron. That's why it's red. That's why it has a rust color. This is what makes that soil so tight, and this is why you see Pete's video about he could push his rods down into the soil 3 foot deep because he's been using humic acids. That wasn't a joke, guys. That was actually a very, very valid thing, and let me explain to you why. Inside these little particles, the humates, the fulvic acids, and all the stuff that makes these products that you see, well, what it does is it gets into this soil, and as it's breaking down, it's producing acids, it's producing other producing other chemical processes. And what happens is it's actually fracturing up where these particles are bound together when it does this. Think about when you pour acid on any kind of metal or anything, you'll see it start etching a path where the acid was. Well, something like that very similar happens in your soil with organic matter. Now, I'm not going to try and get too technical here. That's not the scope of this particular video. But what I want you to understand is how it's getting into the soil. It's actually breaking the soil down and making it more porous so that stuff can breathe and work, but also adding more surface area, because the organic material actually has a CEC, like if you use compost, that has a CEC of like 2 to 400. I mean, way off the charts. So you can see how letting that just get down into your soil, even in liquid form, does a tremendous amount. So the next question that came up was, can I apply it when it's cold? No, you cannot. Pete answered this, and he answered this, but he said he couldn't get into the details, but I'm going to explain to you why. Think about you on a cold winter day. It's snowing outside right now. You can kind of see my breath. What happens? You slow down. You slow down to the point that you can't hardly move if you get too cold. Every life process has to have an X amount of energy to do what it does. And that energy, believe it or not, is heat. That's why fungus does not work up until a certain point or below a certain point. There has to be so much heat energy there for it to do what it does. Your biostems and your organic matters and all of that is the exact same way. So it's going to get in here around this soil particle, and then microorganisms or microbes has to break that material down and produce all these different acids and amino acids and everything else that it produces. And yes, it does do some amino acids. I did research that. All these things that break it down and make it to where it can start holding these nutrients and giving nutrient to the plant. Now, for reference, so that you would know I was not just making stuff up, I am using my certification manual, and I'm going to turn to where it talks about organic matter in here. Here we go. Alright. Soil organic matter consists of plant and animal residues in various stages of decay. Primary sources of organic matter inputs are dead roots. I ain't going to try to pronounce that road. Exudates? Yeah, okay. Litter and leaf drop. And the bodies of soil animals such as insects and worms. Okay? And then if we get down to, there was a section in here that I had just looked at, the effects of organic matter. No, that wasn't the one I was looking for. Hold on. They had one here that talked very good about what I was telling you about organic matter. I'm going too far now. And here, right here, we say the effects of organic matter. Okay? The addition of organic matter improves physical soil conditions, particularly aggregation and microspore space. Remember what I was telling you about how it breaks up all this? Alright, there it is right there. Alright? This improvement leads to increased water infiltration, improved soil tilth, and decreased soil erosion. Organic matter also improves the soil fertility, such as plant nutrients or release to plant available mineral forms as organic residues are decomposed or mineralized. And soil humus is highly charged and retains nutrients against leaching, as discussed later. Okay, so that goes back to what I was telling you about the whole negative charge thing. And it's in here. I got to find it. I will probably have to splice this video for you to see it. But that's what organic matter is doing. You have got to have the heat for it. It has to have so much heat energy to do what it does. And if that heat energy is not present, you're not really wasting the material, but you're also not getting the full benefit of the material. And should it wash away, or should it not get in the soil and do what its thing, you're not really getting your full benefit. Alright? So I hope that kind of puts into a little more perspective for you guys of exactly how this stuff is doing what it's doing. Believe it or not, there is no magic voodoo here. There is no magic, you know, wave a little wand, say hocus pocus, and it works. It's actually all at the atomic level what it's doing. It is actually making things work better for the plant. Just like your fertilizer. Your fertilizer is nitrogen. It's phosphate. It is not phosphorus. All right, a lot of people think it's phosphorus. No, it's phosphate. We'll talk about that here in a second. Potassium. Potassium is always going to be potash. All right. It's not true potassium. All right. So what has to happen, again, when all that stuff gets down in here, and y'all see me and talk to some of the posts about the videos and stuff, doing the soil corrections, how it is a formula to calculate how much available plant phosphorus and plant potassium to these given analysis are. Well, what happens again, that mineral works down into the soil. Something has to break that mineral, that phosphate, and that potash into plant usable forms. Enter organic matter. Enter the processes and the biology in the soil. All of those things break that potash and that phosphate down to make it plant usable potassium, or this is potassium, the orange, and plant usable phosphorus. Again, you know, think about when you have to cook stuff on stoves. Some things don't bond up until you put enough heat to it. You know, it's kind of a separation, you know, especially like food color and stuff. But once you get enough heat in it or whatever, it kind of, chemically it starts working together. Same thing applies here. Okay. So I hope that clears the mud up for you guys. It's not really something fancy and hard to understand. As a matter of fact, I should have now given you enough information that if you wish to Google what I'm telling you and research it, I highly encourage that, because to be what it is the guys are trying to do here, you have to understand all of this to make it work, especially if you have problematic soil. If you have good soil, you could just throw a little bit at it and hey, it's good to go. We got this thing whooped, no big deal. But if it's bad soil, you have to get down into the nitty-gritty of this, and this is where all this comes into play in understanding the true soil sample to get you what it is you're looking for. So, leave any comments or thoughts below. I'll answer everything the best I can. I'm going to try and put some citations on this video for you so that you can go to it. Just depends on if I have enough time or not, but there it is. Hope it helped you guys. Till next time.